Hello, Internet. I am currently 24 hours away from watching Spider-Man No Way Home. I guess I'm kind of excited, you know? It's not like I've been waiting for this movie for 6 months. Internet's crazy, Europe's crazy right now, but it's not too long and I'll be crazy too. So, here we go. Let's see how this ends up. Oh, I'm gonna stop wearing this jacket because I wear this jacket way too much in literally every single video. Here we go. A lot of people have been saying this on Twitter, that like it doesn't feel like a real movie, you know? I look at that and I'm like, oh, it's a movie though. You just go and you watch a movie and that's it. I get that feeling. I do get that feeling. Like part of that is I have so many preconceived notions about Tom Holland Spider-Man. I made 2 videos on it, for God's sake. And this movie contorts those in a way that I'm mixed on. Like it contorts my perception of Tom Holland Spider-Man in a way that I can't say is negative. I can't say is completely positive, but I can say is definitive, you know, if that makes sense. That's a very pretentious way of saying I think I fucking love this movie. Because I made my videos on it. I try to understand Tom Holland Spider-Man, right? Because as I said in my videos, I grew up kind of with this Spider-Man. I didn't grow up watching the Raimi movies. I didn't grow up watching the Tarzan movies. To me, when Tom Holland showed up as Spider-Man in the MCU, I was like, oh my god, it's Spider-Man in the MCU. This is the Spider-Man that I'm going to revolve my life around. And it's like, this movie definitely feels like a completely new step for what that means for Spider-Man. And that caught me by surprise. That really caught me by surprise. Albeit all the spoilers that are coming out, all the leaks, all the everything. The idea that Tom Holland can be this kind of Spider-Man caught me terrifically by surprise. We watched it in Dolby Sound. The Dolby Sound, dude, no spoilers, obviously, but like there's mirror dimension, like Doctor Strange doing magic stuff. There's scenes where things happen in that. And like glass shattering sounds, dude. Mm-hmm. Ooh, those shattering sounds.
The sound
crisp.
was tight.
Yep.
It was just really, really tight.
Yep.
If I went and saw a movie there every single week, I would go deaf by 30.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just a theater. The color grading in this film was really good.
Oh, it was fantastic.
And I was so surprised by that because, you know me, the MCU color grading is so bad. Every single fucking tweet on Twitter. The Spider-Man suit looks beautiful. The Spider-Man suit looks absolutely beautiful. The crisp red is just perfect, and I really hope whatever they do with Spider-Man for the next few movies, I really hope they keep that crisp red, that same tint of crisp red. I wish the house lights didn't go down at the beginning for the previews, because I really wanted to watch that Batman trailer like in complete darkness. But the house lights were on. It's fine. It's whatever. It was a great trailer. It's amazing watching that in a big screen like that. I'm so excited. Are we going back for March?
We are. Flicks Brewhouse is a go for round 2.
That's a shout out. Flicks Brewhouse. Check it out if it's near you. They're pretty.
They
cool.
have nothing to do with us. We have nothing to do with them.
We're not sponsored.
But it was a really,
if you want
really
to sponsor
cool.
me though, I mean like.
It was a really cool experience, and it's worth at least shouting it out because.
See this black T-shirt right here? That could be your logo.
Yeah.
For its runtime, it's paced really well. Yes, I think the press watched mostly the first 40 minutes. But like it might as well be 30 minutes because it's really fast paced. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't love that, but like it's fine. But I mean after that first act, things just go for a bit of a turn. I feel like you can plot out this movie and say it has its standard 3-act, maybe 5-act structure. But it takes use of that, and you can see the delineation points when they happen, and I think it's important that's the case because I feel like a lot of movies forget that like the story structure needs to stay in a way to keep a normal audience engaged the whole way through. But I feel like with this, for as long as the movie was, you can keep an audience like an audience that doesn't know anything about these movies kind of engaged through it. Maybe Dalen, you full confession for Dalen as well. I'm doing it for you. You have not really seen a lot of Marvel movies, right?
I have not. This is the first Marvel movie I've ever seen.
Which is crazy.
Crucify
people watching
me.
this
Crucify me, okay?
People right now watching this are like, I'm glad your face is not on the camera. They would be wanting to
they're
crucify
gonna,
you.
I don't know, in the comments of this video, they're gonna post my address.
No, no. I mean, I think it's interesting that I brought you along because we were talking about this too earlier. I feel like a lot of people who live in this space are sheltered by like, this is the community element, the Spider-Man community. We only talk about these Spider-Man films. We only talk about the leaks. We only talk about this. And I feel like you provide something. You're the representation of the normal audience who like doesn't give a fuck who Spider-Man is. We just want to watch this movie.
Right.
Yeah.
What I will say is I don't have nearly as much investment in this as Mithy does. Mm-hmm. But to make up for that, Mithy has probably 2, maybe even 3 people's worth of investment in these films. And so that more than makes up for
true.
Me.
That is very true.
We talked a little bit about this on the car ride back from the theater.
Yep.
And skip this. I don't have nearly as much of an investment in these films, correct?
Yeah.
I still heard spoilers.
Which is so fucked.
Right.
I'm going to be honest.
Like, I'm not even in the Twitter sphere like you are with these films. And I still saw these spoilers. And regardless of that, I mean, fantastic film. I will say that. I think that's worth saying that this is the first Marvel film I've seen.
Which is going to be crazy to so many people. Because I think we live in an environment where these films exist in such a hub. Not necessarily gatekept. I feel like a lot of other communities and fandoms have done that with their films. But Spider-Man is a hero for everyone. That needs to be said, and the movie does a very good job. Even though it is Spider-Man Endgame, as people call it, the movie still does a very good job allowing normal people to still enjoy this movie. And I think that is something that is going to make... I feel like with Endgame, there's a preface that you need to watch all the movies. You need to understand everything. With this movie, I mean, people are pushing that. You don't really. You just need to know that, like, in the last movie, his fucking mask comes off and everyone knows who he is. But then after that, that's all you need to know. Past that point, the emotionality of this movie stays intact for any audience member, I want to say.
One last thing, just to save myself. I did think it was a fantastic movie, and I think that now I'm going to have to go and watch all of the ones that I missed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This
definitely makes me feel that way leaving.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that crazy to think about?
Right.
In 2021, we were talking about this. 2021 has kind of been a resurgence for a lot of filmmaking. Dune, No Time to Die.
Speaking of No Time to Die, I just want to add to what I said earlier. Could you imagine if somebody had never seen a Bond movie, okay, and then they go and watch No Time to Die, and they go, holy shit, I need to go watch all 24 other Bond movies?
Yeah.
That's basically what I just said about Spider-Man. Yeah.
Which is because we have this Spider-Man movie. It's just a Marvel movie. It's a Spider-Man movie. This does transcend a bit of that. The emotionality of this movie is stronger than any film in this Spider-Man trilogy. I want to even say any film in all of the Spider-Man movies. And I say that as someone who has watched every single one of them more than 5 times. That's a really sad thing to say.
Like I said, you have an investment in these films for about 3 people.
It's a bit. I'm sorry for my cloud tweeting. Emotionality in a movie doesn't necessarily translate to a good movie. Some movies are really, really emotional, and they're not necessarily amazing. Like, some of the Snyder movies are kind of like this. Snyder movies are very emotional. I don't think all of them are amazing, right? This is a rare exception. I think that the emotionality, since so many iterations of this character in these past movies, even I love Homecoming, but even Homecoming, Far From Home, his appearances in Avengers, all of these appearances have not been as emotional as this. And this goes without saying, Tom Holland is an amazing actor, man. Tom Holland is, more so than anything else you could have heard, Tom Holland is what sells this movie. Tom Holland is what makes this movie. Tom Holland is, I want to say at this point, maybe this is a reach, Tom Holland is the best actor to play Spider-Man. I know I go back and forth between that, and I love Andrew Garfield, and Social Network is one of my favorite movies. I think Tom Holland is the best person they could have picked to play Spider-Man and to sell this towards the end. And I think I will stand by that. And I will continue standing by that, no matter how good or bad in quality these movies end up being. Should we talk spoilers?
Let's talk spoilers.
I guess.
Unless you have any last thoughts, no spoilers.
Here's a little thing. I think this might be my favorite Spider-Man movie. I know that's a bit, but I do think it might be my favorite Spider-Man movie. I've been thinking about it. My top 3 have always been Spider-Man Homecoming, Into the Spider-Verse, then TASM. I do think there's a good chance this can be my favorite Spider-Man movie. I think I need to rewatch it again before I actively make that decision. But this is so much better than I expected. And I did not expect that at all. I went into it with low expectations to no expectations to negative expectations. And it transcended all of that. And so if there's anything to take away from this review, it's that this was a positive experience for me. And the more I think about it, the more it continues to be a positive experience.
What was that line from the movie about... it was about low expectations or disappointment.
Yeah, something like that.
If you anticipate disappointment, you won't be disappointed, whatever.
They said that a lot.
Yeah, they did. I mean, that's how you felt about it, right?
Yeah.
I'm just fucking around. You can cut this out. But yeah, this was a fantastic film. And it was really, really good to be back in the theater because I was thinking about it while we were sitting there. I was like, I think the last movie I saw in a theater before COVID, and yes, it was before COVID the last time I was in a theater, would have either been The Joker or is either The Joker or Ford vs. Ferrari. They came out around the same time.
I need to watch Ford vs. Ferrari.
That would have been the last time I was in a theater. So it was a fantastic experience, a fantastic film to go back and get back into that world, be there. It was awesome.
Yep. And yeah, more no spoiler thoughts on our podcast too. Check that out.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
But yeah, all right. Anyone who's here who hasn't seen the movie, please leave. Please fucking dash out of there. Fucking click the subscribe button and then leave. Just get out of here, okay? We're gonna talk spoilers. I'm trying to avoid leaks. I'm trying to avoid everything. We are going to talk spoilers. There's so many spoilers to talk about. But yeah, all right. Spoiler section.
Where do you want to start? Do you want to do it chronologically throughout? I feel like that'd be hard.
That'd be hard.
We can just go like impactful moments. I don't know what you're gonna open the spoiler section with.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
Oh my lord.
I hated that line. I'm gonna be honest, like I get it and it's like funny.
Yeah.
That was so like little artificially slit in there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't like that. The moment that happened, I'm like, okay, fuck you guys.
Right.
Like I was like, but there's not a lot of moments like that. Transparently, there's not a lot of moments like that. I'm something of a scientist myself line was like, okay, we get it, the memes. And there are even a couple moments between Toby, Andrew, and Peter that there was like, okay, come on, you don't need to say, like, you're amazing. And I'm like, okay, we get it. The movies were called The Amazing Spider-Man movies. Shut the fuck up and please move on. Which, speaking of, Toby and Andrew. Did that get leaked for you? That kind of got leaked for you, right?
Yeah, I had heard about it.
Yeah.
But it was good. I liked having them there, even though they have very little...
They have very little to do. I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah.
They are not comic relief. I was afraid they were going to be completely comic relief. I will say, Toby's a little too funny. Like, I get it, because he's with all these other characters. He's a little too funny. He's like, oh yeah, I got the wet blood. And it's like, okay, calm down. Andrew is perfect. I really want that third movie. I think this is a jumping off point for them to do another movie with him. I really hope they do, because Andrew is perfect in a lot of these scenes. I love Andrew in this movie.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be very cool. Please don't do the weird resurrection thing I heard in a pitch, because I heard, you know, the original TASM 3, the original third movie, was supposed to be like, he's supposed to be able to bring people back to life with his like blood, which is like, I don't like that idea. That's a little weird.
Yeah, you'd have to
you know what I hope happens?
Mm-hmm.
I hope that he exists in the same universe as the universe Venom exists in, because I feel like those actors are like around the same age. You could do something interesting with that. But yeah, Toby and Andrew, I mean, I'll go into them more a bit later. Let's start with, I mean, just like Tom Holland in the beginning of this movie. I said it's fast paced. It is really fast paced. I wish they kind of slowed down, because it's like jump shot to jump shot to jump shot to jump shot. A lot of that stuff was in the trailers already. That's fine. But they spent a lot of time, I think, with Tom. They spent a good amount of time with the other characters too. But I think it's good that they spend time with Tom. Tom feels older in this movie. Peter feels older in this movie. A lot of the complaining about this version of Spider-Man is he feels kind of young throughout the entire thing. I think he feels like I think he feels like a high school, like end of high school going into college student. I really really like that. I really like that they stuck with that. That's really good. Um, and we'll talk about the future of these movies later, but I'm excited to see more of Tom being that kind of Spider-Man. What's the next big jumping off point? The Doctor Strange spell.
Yeah, the spell.
Yeah.
That was an interesting aspect.
Yeah.
And I mean, just that causing everything to fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Another scene that's really important that I don't think a lot of people are going to be talking about is a scene in the mirror dimension where he's doing like the math, you know? And I feel like that's cool. Like, people have complained about the Marvel Spider-Man show having so much like weird sciencey stuff. And like that is kind of a little bit weird. Like if there's too much of it, it feels not as grounded. But Peter's a smart kid, and this version of Peter, I think they've established with Toby and Andrew, he is like the smartest version of Peter, and they keep sinking into that. They keep going. He's smart. He knows what this is. It's just geometry, and I did really like that. It does. People want Peter to become like a teacher eventually and stuff, but more so than a lot of the other Spider-Man characters, Peter is grounded in STEM. Like he's always been interested in science, and the fact that he sticks with that is kind of cool. The line where he's like, you know what's cooler than magic? Math. I was waiting for him to like do like a Khan Academy plug at the end. You know,
they'll turn that into a online.
They are going to turn that into
YouTube ad.
They are going to. There are so many little moments in this film that I'm like, you can take that and put that in an ad. But it's also because it's a Spider-Man movie, you know. That's part of it. Do we want to talk about the choice with Peter and these villains? I feel like that's what's really bringing this movie up for me, is the idea that like in all the other movies, and you probably saw this in a lot of the recaps, it is Peter versus the villains. It's always Peter versus the villains, and that dynamic does get explored, but the dynamic usually between Peter and his villains in a lot of these movies is they know each other, they're kind of familiar with each other, the villain goes down a dark path, and Peter must stop them. That's what happened in basically a lot of the Raimi movies. It happened a good amount in TASM 1 is basically that. Even Spider-Man 2 is kind of a bit of that with Harry. And then with these movies, even like the Vulture starts off as a villain, and it's about Peter and a villain, and they kind of get to know each other, and by the end, even though they know each other, they have to fight each other. I feel it's very interesting that they started everyone off as a villain. Everyone is a bad guy, and the challenge of the movie and the challenge in the script is to completely humanize these villains. And I think it does a decent job at it. It does a better job with some villains more than others. Doc Ock, fabulous. I love Alfred Molina in this role, and he really does bring something to that where he's like, okay, I'm bad guy, tentacles, everything, put the fucking chip on, and then there you go. That scene in general, I think that maybe that's my favorite scene in the film, where he puts the thing on his chip. That's such a Tom Holland, Peter Parker thing to do. He is seeing the best in everyone, and he's doing his best to save every single person, no matter what they've done to him. And that's a very core aspect to what this Spider-Man has been. I feel like Far From Home kind of spits in the face of that a bit, you know? But aside from that, that's what Homecoming was. Homecoming is the Vulture is just doing this thing because he thinks it's what's right for his family. And then finally Peter comes in, and his final attempt isn't to stop the Vulture, but to save the Vulture. To save him and to save his family from ruining their lives completely. And that's what Peter does. And it kind of does taint the relationship with the family, but it is to save Michael Keaton's Vulture. It's to save Adrian Toomes. And so what this movie has done is kind of stayed with that same spirit, and that's what really caught me by surprise. The moment Peter is standing there by his neck and he's like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to save you. That is such a powerful moment for me. Because like even the scene where he's like sitting there with like Defoe and he's sitting there with Norman, I'm like, we haven't seen this in a movie before. We've never really seen this kind of thing in a movie before, and I'm absolutely in love with that. That's something no one really predicted, per se. Right? It wasn't really a leak that Spider-Man would work with the villains. So when all of that was happening, I'm like, oh my god, this is something new. I do think a little bit of it is far-fetched. Like the Electro stuff is a little weird, of like him being like, oh, I see the city now and I want all this power. And it's like, he seems like a bad guy from the beginning. And it's like, I feel like if I'm going to quote unquote fix this movie, which I'm not, but if I am going to do that, maybe not all of the villains come with Peter, and some of them come with Peter, like only Defoe. So Norman Osborn, Doc Ock, and like Sandman come with Peter, and then everyone else stays behind. And then Defoe turns, and then they rescue the other villains, or something like that. I feel like that would have made for a stronger storyline, but that's irrelevant at this point because the potent moments that work, the potent moment with Doc Ock, works really well. Did that affect you that way, or am I just like alone, kind of in that corner?
No, I agree. I think I especially agree with what you said about. Okay, some of these guys are definitely interested in being a part of what Peter has going on. Mm-hmm. Others from the onset just seem like they're going to be a villain always, and forever.
I really like what they did with Green Goblin. I'm in love with what they did with Green Goblin, and I was scared, but they did a really, really good job with this. I think
he's vile.
I think he is my favorite villain, like through all of this, because the original movie had that same spirit, and Defoe. Props to Defoe, man. Defoe really nails. He's so much older now, and he still nails that little thing in his performance to make him like. I want to say like he's not the definitive Norman Osborn because there are various different kinds of Norman Osborn, but for these movies that he is that Norman Osborn, and I love that. I don't think it's a good idea for the movies to just cast like a new Norman Osborn. I feel like he does a really good job as like he is this person who will always hate Peter. Even I think it would have been cool if like even when he gets cured at the end, if he is still evil, like there was something deep in him that would never leave. But I don't think you need to establish that because the movie just keeps going. Peter rushes to feast and he's just sitting there with Aunt May and he's this I'm so sad kind of character. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
Speaking of Aunt May,
are we gonna? I feel weird about it. I knew that was happening because I kind of knew. I basically knew. Originally, I thought Happy was going to die. Then I heard Ned was going to die. And then I'm like, no, May's going to die. And then everyone was like, no, May's going to die. And I'm like, okay, so I guess May's going to die. The way it happened was like cruel.
Maybe I have no authority to speak on this. And maybe you should just delete this from the video.
I need hot takes, Dalen. Steamy, hot, piping takes.
If you're gonna kill someone like that, you need to fucking kill him.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that whole scene took a while.
It took too long.
There's a lot of build up.
Yeah. I feel like she should have had her emotional moment with Peter, and then she should have get whacked in the head and died.
Yeah.
I think the idea that like May is hiding it from Peter is just a little too much because it just makes Peter look like an idiot, Because Peter looks like an idiot just standing there and not realizing May is bleeding to death. I feel like that kind of makes him look really fucking stupid.
Yeah, I didn't even know she was dying until well into it. And maybe I'm just an oblivious idiot, but I was just like, okay. I mean, I knew she was going to die. Like, from the moment when she's laying on the ground, I'm like, okay, she's about to die. Yeah. That's going to happen. Yeah. But the film doesn't actually establish that she's dying until
it takes a little bit too long. Yeah. That's the one thing. Is it because the moment the glider swinged around, and she got whacked. I'm like, oh shit, he like stabbed her with the glider or something. And then she like gets up and I'm like, well, she's going to die though. Why is she not dying? And then like slowly they get to it because they had to fit the speech in the middle. And I feel like you should have just taken the speech, put it before the scene, the Green Goblin can after it, and then she dies still the same way. Yeah. Because her actual death, that was amazing. Her actual death of her dying, the cops show up, they shoot him in the fucking shoulder and he leaves. That is a level of emotional like resonance that I don't think we've seen really in the MCU yet.
Right.
It's like that kind of almost gritty feeling of like, this is a kid who is in high school that just saw his aunt get shot. His like pseudo uncle figure is being arrested and he's getting shot in the shoulder as he leaves a crime scene. That is a level of like depressing storytelling that I really love in this kind of movie, especially at the end of this trilogy.
This is just an idea. But weren't they literally just before she dies? They were up in a room together with that, with the, what is the, I'm trying to think of the word.
Don't worry.
The moment that they could have had together could have just been in that room. Yeah. Maybe not. Maybe I have no ground to stand on with this.
I think what should have happened is there should have been, and Avengers Endgame was going to have this too, where in the middle of the fight there was going to be like a trench scene where all the characters talk. And I feel like it doesn't work in Avengers Endgame because it's so tightly paced. with a movie like this, I feel like you needed a moment where Doc Ock gets flinged out, fucking Goblin and Peter are beating the shit out. I love that fight scene, that hallway fight scene. That was really, really cool. I think I'm going to see a few people talking about that.
Down through the floors.
Down through the floors.
Yeah.
That's sick. I think what should have happened is that they, and maybe I need to rewatch this to fully congest how it goes with the previous scene. She should have been running with the Oz formula, and she's like, Peter, take this, and he's like, I don't know, we should just send them back. I'm going to ask MJ to send them back, and then Peter should have been no, this is who we are. This is what we do. We save people. That's the point of Feast. That's the point of us. That's the reason Uncle Ben died, is because you need to use this power, and you have a responsibility to use this power. And then he goes to fucking do it. He drops the vial. Then May goes and fucking stabs him in the neck. And then Green Goblin fucking stabs her in the fucking stomach or shoots her with a gun. I don't fucking know. And then everything else happens.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the emotionalness of Toby and Andrew. Them entering... First of all, that scene was like on every single fucking YouTube thumbnail for the past week. If you live in the UK and you posted a spoiler, I will hunt you down. And I will throw a pumpkin bomb in your fucking face, you pieces of shit. I love Andrew in this movie. I think Toby is a little bit stilted here and there. Like, I don't think he's perfect. I like him in the movie, and I think there's a lot of stuff in him that's really good. I do think some of it is a little bit phoned in, like a tiny bit. I could sense it. Andrew's fucking putting his heart on the platter, though. I love Andrew's scenes. And the scene where the three of them talk on the roof of the school, that was something else. I didn't love the scene, because I feel like a few things they mentioned about Uncle Ben were a little bit weird, of like, my Uncle Ben said that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we get it. Come on. But the way Andrew talked about Gwen, and like the way he was like, Gwen died for me, and ever since then I went on kind of a dark path. I love that. That's exactly what I wanted from Andrew Parker. That's how much he's Peter Parker. That's exactly what I wanted from Andrew's Spider-Man. Is I wanted that feeling of like, he lost someone and he's chipper about it when the mask is off. But when he puts on that mask, that becomes about, I lost Gwen because I wear this suit, you know? And I really love that they kind of nailed that. With Toby, I found it interesting that they brought up his Uncle Ben as the death that pushed everything. I feel like they would have used Harry instead, because Harry dies in the third movie, and like that would have been the thing that pushed him as like an event, because it's supposed to be because you get the powers, because you're Spider-Man, something happens. And I feel like the choice to make Toby's about Uncle Ben was a little bit weird. I feel like it would have been better if it was Harry, because even the joke later on where he's like, oh yeah, I used to have a best friend, and then he tried to kill me, but then after he killed me, he died. That makes it seem like he was just evil the whole time. But like the point of Spider-Man 3 is that he has a redemption, and like he realizes that these people are his friends. And I feel like that could have very easily been swapped around, of like Toby sitting on there talks about how, you know, he used to have a best friend and things got rough between them, but kind of because I fell into this life and because I didn't make that connection, he died. It would have been weird to tie that into Aunt May, but I think I would have preferred that there instead. The Uncle Ben great power, great responsibility stuff is not ham-fisted. I don't think it's ham-fisted. I think it's a good use of it all the way through. I think it's calling back to classic Spider-Man, and I don't need it to call back to exactly classic Spider-Man. But the moment May, while she's dying, says, "With great power comes great responsibility," they don't say Tom's Uncle Ben. Like, they don't address the fact that Tom has an Uncle Ben, but they address the fact that like this is an important saying, and this is an important saying he has to live by. And I really like that's at least alluded to, and I think that's good. That this movie finally, after 5 years, alludes to the fact that Uncle Ben had an impact on Tom's life. The quips are fine. It's some of it was standard Marvel movie-ish, and I feel like some of them will age better than others. But at the end of the day, it's part of just the Marvel movie experience at this point. They didn't make as many. They made the jokes on the, like, while they're waiting for while they're in the lab cooking up stuff, and while they're waiting for the villains to show up at the Statue of Liberty. Some of them are better than others. I feel like there were a couple of jokes in there that I was like, okay, this is going on for a bit. We can dial it down. We don't need all of this. And I feel like they could have done that later, but they didn't really. It's fine. it's fine. It's to keep the pacing, I think, throughout as well. And I think if I'm sacrificing less jokes for better pacing, I'm fine with that sacrifice.
I liked having them there.
Yeah.
I like the characters. I think they definitely added to it.
Yeah.
And I think that it helps make the story very cohesive by having them there.
Yeah. Because the focus still is on Tom. And that's what my fear was, the focus would divert away from Tom. It didn't. It stayed on Tom the whole way through. And even watching Strange look at Tom healing Lizard, that's great. Also, I don't think they got the voices of the original Sandman, the original Lizard back. If you look at the shots of them disintegrating to the original forms, those are pulled straight from the old movies. The shot of Connors turning into Connors, that's like straight from TASM 1. And I think the shots of Sandman are also straight from the Spider-Man 3. So I don't think they got the actors back. And I don't recognize the voice. The voices were a little off too, so I think it might have been different voice actors. If anyone knows for sure, you can fact check me in the comments. But I don't think it's as strong as the second act of the film.
Okay.
But because the second act has Aunt May's death and it has the emotional potential of Aunt May's death. Tom's fight with Green Goblin at the end was amazing. That fight, like with the sun glistening right there, that's awesome.
I think the whole fight at the end just fucked.
Yeah.
It was just good.
It was really good.
I've never watched one guy who was actually three guys fight an army.
Yeah.
But it was cool. Yeah.
It was like, and it's I want that as a Lego set. I feel like that's got to be their next big like $200 Lego set of like Statue of Liberty and the fucking three of them swinging around and MJ. I knew about Andrew saving MJ because everyone was saying it. And it's weird because, like, one of the promotional videos, they were like, I saw a fan, like, Tom Holland or, like, Zendaya was like, I saw a fan theory that, like, Andrew would save MJ. And I thought that was funny. Like, oh, who would do that? And that's exactly what happened in the movie.
Right.
And I was like, okay, come on. You didn't have to say that, but what it is. This is not like Far From Home where they have to balance the cast of an entire high school, you know? They are balancing the cast within themselves. And because of that, the story is strongest when it's more emotional within that small group of people. The story with Peter is stronger, and I think that's really what's more important at the end of the day. And consequences for his actions, not actions for his consequences. I said it wrong the entire time. God damn it. Consequences for his actions. That you see those very heavily, and you see Peter realize that at the end of like, these are his actions, and the biggest consequence he can have is sacrificing this amount of Peter Parker's life so that Spider-Man can still be a hero for people. And that is the way that Tom portrays that, and the way that happens with Doctor Strange. That entire scene is very almost self-insert, you know, of like, if I were in that position, would I choose to do this? Would I sacrifice my girlfriend, my best friend, the people around me, the love that I have and the support system I have, just so that like this problem can go away for the rest of the world? And it's a very personal decision if it goes one way, but he chooses not to make that. And I think in a movie that we all have been complaining is, in a series of movies that we have all been complaining is not Spider-Man enough, I think that's the most Spider-Man decision that Spider-Man can ever make, is taking that the consequence for his actions. And I'm really happy with the way that turned out. And the way that ends, too. You know, it's not glorifying Toby and Andrew during that scene. It's dialing all back to Tom, Ned, and MJ. Or Peter, Ned, and MJ. It's dialing it back to these three characters who were there in the beginning and are there now. And I think that is the best thing you can do with the story. I don't know how much of that comes from the screenwriters. I think the screenwriters did a really good job with this film. I think a lot of that is just the performances too, and the direction. The direction of this movie is insane. John Watts deserves more for all the shit that he's received. I feel like we've been giving him a lot of shit because he made Far From Home, but he did something else with this movie. He did something else with those characters, and he chose to focus on those characters more than anything else. And I think that's I want to say that's the strongest thing in this movie. Toby and Andrew, they're there. They're there to be fun, and they're there to provide some level of emotional discussion. Or I don't know if that's the right term for it. But it's Ned, Peter, and MJ that stick out. And I mean, do we want to talk about the ending now?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the ending?
Sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't have nearly the emotional involvement in these that you have.
Yeah.
It was sad.
Yeah.
It was sad at the end.
Yeah. And it's like...
They're reconciled a bit by...
It's not the same.
It's not. It's not. You know, they did reconcile a bit by having to go into the coffee shop. And they have that moment where they look at each other. But it's just not what it was before that moment where he's forgotten by everybody.
Yep. Yeah. And they even said, I think, is at the funeral too, where Happy doesn't know who he is, and he's just this guy now who's made his own suit. Which that suit, it's a beautiful suit. I love it. It's basically just a comic accurate suit. The blue's a little bit too shiny. Wish they dialed in the blue a little bit. They'll do that for the next film. They're listening. I think the idea of just ripping Tom's Peter of everything, you know, that's something that we've all wanted. Fans have wanted for so long. And now that we have it, on one hand, I love it because it's... Did he have like a GED book or something too? Was he working on his GED? That's kind of rough, man. That's rough.
Big setback for him.
Yeah, big setback. It's smart as fuck too. That not only maybe we'll start off I do think we'll start off the next movie, this college trilogy that everyone's calling it. The next trilogy is going to be this college trilogy. I do think that will be him at like Empire State University or something, and he's going to be trying to make ends meet. He's in a shitty apartment, not a lot of stuff, but he's choosing to be Spider-Man anyway in his own new suit. I love that though. I love that aspect of it. The other side of it, though, is this thing of, okay, we've built up this character with this cast and with these people over the course of this trilogy. Are we throwing all of that away now? Is that a little weird to throw all of that away now? I don't know. And that's still something that's going to have to sit with me. I think on one side it's cool because now the next director who comes along, who's probably not going to be John Watts, they're going to have a different take on it. They're going to have a different direction that they want to go with Tom's Spider-Man and what they want to do with him in college. But I do think it is kind of sad to see that go away. And I think it's interesting to see this. It's kind of, for the longest time I was comparing this to Star Wars, these Spider-Man movies. And like they're all different and the latest one is stupid as fuck. And I've always been comparing it like that. But the one thing about the Star Wars movies, each trilogy in and of itself is contained. It is its own little trilogy, and even though it shares the universe, it is its own little trilogy of a select amount of characters. Sometimes characters go a little bit through each of them, but it's mainly just focused on this, and the story ends in some way, shape, or form at the end of the trilogy. That's what Spider-Man is. That's very much in the MCU, which is a movie so much about this thread continuing through everything, an ongoing thread. This movie has a lot of finality, and I think that is something that you need to pay attention to as like that's important to have that kind of finality because they've been working on these movies for 5 fucking years at this point, 6 years at this point. I think with this new trilogy that helps it set the finality of it, you know, and I think of the chain of these movies from like the MCU where everything is an ongoing storyline. It's really nice to have, okay, finally, this is the end of a trilogy, the end of a story. Because they've been working on these movies for, 5-6 years now? So they've been working on them so fast. They've kind of been pumping them out. They've worked a lot on the writing of this character. And by the end of it, Tom has really like sunk his like entire soul into this one character of like 7 movies. Not 7 movies, 5 movies, including... No, 6 movies, including all the Avengers movies, for the past 6 years. And so that's a lot. That's really a lot. And I'm really happy to see some kind of finality to it. Because technically, if they don't make a Spider-Man movie again, I mean, he's Spider-Man. That's really it. He's Spider-Man. He's Spider-Maning around. And the story can continue from there, whoever takes it. You know, and I'm really glad it at least ends with that. It doesn't end with your... Spider-Man Far From Home. Oh my god, his identity is revealed. What do we do now? This ends in a place where I'm happy with the ending. I'd like to see... I said this to you earlier. I was afraid with this movie, by the end, because of how it ended, I would like begrudgingly be excited for the next one. Like, okay, fine, I'll be excited for the next one because it's the next one. I don't feel that. I feel genuinely excited for whatever they do with this character next, if they do anything. You know, symbiote suit... He's in college. He fights Craven or something like that. I don't know what they're going to do, but I am genuinely excited for that. Whereas before I was very skeptical. I'm not skeptical anymore. I'm sold. I'm basically sold.
We're almost at an hour.
We are.
Yeah.
Shit.
Do you have any closing thoughts?
I think spoilers ruin this movie. I don't. If it was deliberate marketing on Sony and Marvel's part, fuck you guys. Just goddamn it, come on, man. I feel like, imagine if this movie was pitched as like Spider-Man versus Doctor Strange, with maybe some weird multiverse thing in the background. If that was it, you know, and then you go into this movie and it's all of this stuff. But I mean, I can't criticize the movie for its marketing. I criticize the movie for the movie. And as a movie, it sold me over in a way that I didn't expect it to. You know, I don't think it's the holy grail of Spider-Man movies, but I do think right now it has been the best experience I have watching a Spider-Man movie. And maybe that's too strong, and maybe I do need to watch it again. Maybe I do need to watch it when it comes out on Blu-ray or something like that. But I do think for right now, as it stands, this movie did such a good job that I can sit here with at least a little bit of confidence and like definitively say this was my current favorite Spider-Man movie. I never expected to say that. Never in my entire fucking life did I expect to say that.
Watching this movie, first of all, I loved it. It was great. And again, this has inspired me to go out and watch the rest of them.
Yeah.
I just have to catch up now. I have to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And then maybe by the time by the time I'm done watching all of these other movies, I'll be able to go and watch this one again.
Yep.
But that vague statement I was going to make, it was such a great movie. Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
No,
I'm
just joking. It was a really great movie. There were moments where I laughed. There were funny moments in this movie. There were moments where I just wanted to hug the characters.
Yeah.
You know, there were moments where I just wanted to punch one of the characters in the face. It really took you through all the emotions. Yeah. So
I'm going to convince my parents to let me see this next week before Christmas. I want to see it again. I really, really want to see it again. I want that experience again. Because this is something I expected this movie to disappoint me, and then I'll forget about it a week later. I'm not going to forget about this. I'm not going to forget about this for the next month. I don't know if I'm going to make a video essay on it, but I'm not going to forget about it. I know that.
I can think of many things throughout this movie that could be made into a full-length video on their own. Yeah. And almost things that deserve to be made into a full-length video on their own. Yeah.
Maybe you'll see one.
Yeah. Who knows?
Maybe I'll work on one. I didn't is this my favorite Marvel movie this year so far? I love Hawkeye. Hawkeye's going amazingly right now. I guess this is a great way to end the year. It's Christmas time, man. Hawkeye's
It is. It was a really good Christmas release too.
You
think about the movies they could have released for Christmas time.
Yeah.
Good Christmas release.
Yep. I'm expecting more people to love this movie, and if you don't love this movie, I want to know why specifically. Because like even I sitting here it's hard for me to pick out the specific points where I'm like I don't like this. It's very hard for me to do that. So I'll be honest. I live in a world of cynicism, you know. Like this being speaking personally, I live in a world where people around me are cynical for every single thing, and I feel like I add to that. I do add to a lot of that, and I feel bad about it because I want the best for these movies, but I feel like I have a spot to say something like, see, I didn't like this, so this is where I must say that opinion, because I don't have anywhere else to really direct that opinion. And I do feel bad about that sometimes. And I do think I have good reason for speaking negatively on previous movies and iterations of this character, but right now I'm just genuinely so happy that I can fall in love with the Spider-Man movie again. Because I haven't felt that since fucking Homecoming, 6 years ago. And so finally I can say that I love another Spider-Man movie. And I think if anything, that's the best thing this movie could have done is make me love it. So I'm really happy this movie was good, and I'm really excited to hear what more people think. So leave a fucking comment down below. I don't know. You want to give?
What do you rate it?
I think I'm gonna rate it a 10 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10, but for like small things that are irrelevant, so it's a 10 out of 10. I think.
I agree. Anything that would make this movie lose points doesn't really matter ultimately. Exactly. I would give this movie. This is a strong fucking movie.
Yeah. I expect to rewatch it soon. Maybe make a video essay on it. Check out Fanboy Talk when that comes out. We're gonna talk a fuck ton about it. I don't know what Troy thinks about this movie yet. And then Illiterates.
Illiterates. Check out the Illiterates. You'll hear more of my voice on that one.
Yeah. This year has been the year of Spider-Man, and I'm so burned out of Spider-Man content. But I'm genuinely, I'm so happy I enjoyed this movie, man. Because like I didn't expect it, but I did. So.
Please don't include this. I don't want future employers to hear this. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Fucking bring back symbiotes to Spider-Man. That's what I'll say. Let me direct a Spider-Man movie, please. Now that John Watts isn't doing it, come on. Dalen is right here. You'll shoot it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll shoot a Spider-Man movie with me?
Yeah, I have no idea how to run any of the shit that they're working with. So.
We'll do it anyway. Let me direct the new Spider-Man, fuckers. That's my pitch. That's my pitch is.
I can only imagine how many other people around the world have the same exact pitch as let me direct the next Spider-Man film, fuckers.
Yeah, exactly. No one.
You think you're the only one who threw fuckers in there?
I'm the only one who's looking at Kevin Feige right now and telling you, yo, you fucking hat-wearing motherfucker. Let me direct the next Spider-Man movie, please. That's all I'm going to say.
Good Lord.
Kevin Feige, if you're watching this, hey, that's all I have to say.
Raw thoughts.
Raw thoughts!
You gonna cut it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm kidding.
All right. Fuck
Bye-bye!